So the legal apartheid you find in Canada towards Native people, or in Israel towards the Palestinians, you have a spiritual apartheid that the Catholic Church has imposed on people from the very beginning. You say there's us, the elect, and everybody else outside, and you should be segregated and discriminated against, and they don't have the same rights as us. That's the same. So I mean, I would say they're all talking out of the same logic. So in that sense, they of course they get along. They feed one another.
Yeah.
What they can't relate to is something you find in indigenous beliefs, and you might call it pluralism, the belief that all faiths are true. There isn't one that's truer than another and has dominance over the other. All are true. Yeah. All are expressions of a mystery, right? And like a lot of Native people don't talk about God. They use the term the great mystery, because we can't know. Yeah. We can have senses of things, but it's that humility saying, yeah, well, maybe you do know better than me. I don't know. Who am I to say, right? So that's that sense of spirituality, which you find in Jesus and his teachings, is totally the opposite of political religion or imperial religion, which unfortunately you got when the church merged with the state under Constantine, and we're living under the legacy of that. So the challenge now is to undo all that. How do you undo that? You go back to the source and you say, this is where it went wrong. Let's go back and start again. And that's the challenge now more and more. It isn't just protesting human rights violations, because frankly, these institutions are not accountable. They don't think they've done anything wrong. You know, they do not think they've done anything wrong. They never will. They've got to be undone by ignoring them, by undoing them, by taking away their legal rights, by not giving them money, by exposing them for what they are, and trusting in people's conscience and intelligence to say, we're not going to be part of these institutions anymore, and let's start again somehow, right? Let's do it. You know?
Something that's very frustrating is recently, and over the last few years, there's been a lot of exposure of paedophile priests in the Catholic religion, and the cover-up at very high levels, including the current Pope. One of the frustrating things is why these people who have perpetrated these horrific crimes then aren't answerable to the law. Like, if the average Joe off the street or whatever was convicted, well, or was guilty of doing these things, then they'd be locked up and the key thrown away. Can you just explain about that and canon law? You know?
Yeah, I always think canon law should have two N's and a not one. Like, it's called C-A-N-O, but it should be canon, like literally. Yeah. But no, canon law is a system which is supposed to apply to the internal life of the church, right? So, but it applies generally in the sense that the church considers itself above and beyond the laws of the land. And now and then they'll toss a priest to the crowd, right? They'll say, okay, this priest can go and serve in your courts, because they have to retain their legitimacy, right? But the reality is that they are not answerable under the laws of any land, under their own legal system. Now, it doesn't have any weight. It's like, in international law, that doesn't have any weight at all. But governments are in collusion with the Vatican, so they're allowing them to do that for their own purposes. Yeah. I mean, just at the level of child trafficking, they all do it. And so, what better thing to have than to have an organization that's legally protected from any prosecution? Then, you know, if you're a pedophile, you can go in and work in the Catholic Church, you'll never be held accountable for any of this stuff. So, I mean, that helps. And as John Paul, who was murdered, John Paul I, found out, the churches are huge money laundering systems and tax-free corporate havens, you know, for a lot of that work too. So the churches have a purpose, and they're protected by the state for that reason, and that's why they turn a blind eye to this canon law thing. Yeah. Like Mussolini's law that made the Vatican a state in 1929. It has no bearing in international law. It was a law passed by a dictator who was then overthrown. But all the governments are protecting it, pretending it has weight, because it, you know, it's part of that mutual kind of beneficial arrangement, right? Yeah. So it was only 1929 that the Vatican was created. As a matter of fact, when Garibaldi unites Italy, and he overthrew the Papal States, there were all these states around Rome that were called the Papal States. The Pope had all this political power and land and everything. Yeah. He took it all over, and he actually abolished the Vatican between 1870 and 1929. The Vatican didn't exist. They were just kind of sitting there with no... in response, in 1870, the Pope says, "Oh yeah? Okay, well then I'm infallible." They brought in the doctrine of papal infallibility, which means he can commit no wrong, or he can never be wrong about anything, which was a new one.
Yeah.
And not even all the cardinals voted on that one, but he felt the need to assert that because his own worldly power was disintegrating. Mussolini actually not only recognized them, but he compensated the Vatican for all the money they'd lost under Garibaldi. All of that money went into creating the Vatican Bank in the 1930s, and one of their first acts, funding Hitler.
Yeah.
First power in the world to recognize Adolf Hitler within a few days of him becoming chancellor.
Yeah.
January 1933. The papal nuncio in Berlin sits down. They signed the Concordat, which said that the Vatican recognized Hitler as a legitimate power, and they would not interfere with anything he did within Germany in return for him protecting the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
So when Ratzinger goes around talking about the horrors of Nazism and saying that fascism was and the death camps were because of atheists, no, it was because that made me puke when I heard that. It was because of the Roman Catholic Church that fascism came to power. But he conveniently, that's a perfect example of a spin where he's saying, "Oh no, it's because you guys," when it's. I mean, he was Hitler Youth.
Yeah.
He should know. He has personal experience.
Yeah. It's also interesting that Britain and America and the Zionist bankers were involved in funding Hitler as well. Yeah.
And the state of Israel.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you tell us about where people can find out more information about your website and your books that you've got?
www.hiddenfromhistory.org is a website, although we are in the process of building a new website. In addition, I'm based now in England and Ireland. We're doing a lot of work over here, and we especially need people to come forward and help us with this tribunal, and also to start building up media and community networks to support survivors when they come forward. That's the main way to find out. Also through my press agent Anna Bragga, and her email is consiencecommunications, like consiencecommunications@gmail.com, right here in London. And with all of you who are listening,
and what about the books that you've written, and
right.
Where can people get those?
There's two new books. This is the updated version of kind of my biography of the last 15 years. It's called Unrepent and Disrobing the Emperor, and it tells the whole story. You can get this. It's published by O Books right here in England. It's on. You can pre-order it now on Amazon Books over the internet. You can also write to me, hiddenfromhistory@yahoo.ca, to get copies. They're £10. This other book is the compilation of all the evidence of the crimes in Indian residential schools. This is a young native girl with smallpox in the front cover. Yeah. This has all of the evidence of the genocidal activities, the documents, the testimonies from eyewitnesses. This I have to self-publish because no publisher will produce it.
Right.
I sell it for $40. You can get it from me again through our website or my email. And we're hoping to get both of these all over the place, especially into libraries, schools, into the curriculum, colleges and schools, so people can begin to learn the real history.
Yeah, that would make a change if education establishments would actually teach real history.
Yeah.
That would be great. Okay, well thanks Kevin.
Thank you, and carry it on.
Yeah, and best of luck for the future.
Thank
you. You know, you're doing a great cause, and wish you all the best of luck.
Thank you.
Okay.